Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you for the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. If you want to see the first hour, please go to YouTube, to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, which is where you are now. I want you to like and subscribe and click that bell so that whenever we come up, you will be able to be notified. And I want you to get involved in the conversation with the Santita Jackson Morning Stars. They have a conversation all their own about what we're talking about right now about these free and equal elections. Are they really? We hear that CNN is now going to have a debate between Trump and Biden, President Biden and former President Donald Trump. 27% of Americans uh, identify themselves as Democrats. That's the lowest figure in recent memory. 27% of Americans identify themselves as Republican, and they've had a jump of 2%. But 44% of Americans say that we're independent, and those numbers are growing every day. But at that debate, that 44%, that growing group of independents, they're not going to be heard. But the Free and Equal Elections Foundation will be having a debate, and I hope a series of debates through this campaign season. It will be in Las Vegas on July 11th. I can't wait to be there so that we can hear the unvoiced. How about that? So, speaking of that, can we please talk? Podcast host is one of the top podcasts in the United States. Indeed, if you look at this handsome gentleman, we have seen him all over television for many, many years. And tell your wife is just a woman just being nice about that. And but I'm not blowing smoke. It's just it's the truth. I can see why you've been on TV. It's a great thing. But of course, you are the strategy and policy director for the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. I'm so glad that you are here with us, joining Sheila Garland of the Poor People's Campaign of Illinois. Their campaign will be having their national convention on July 27th in Washington, D.C. I want you to go to that website in every state. Go on, get involved, and get to Washington, D.C. If not now, Chicago. I've grown so fond, I have to call them my kids, these young Jewish activists. I'm so proud of them. And I've just taken them under my wing. I'm like they're on Santita. But I'm really proud of the work that they are doing. And they are in coalition with people of every conceivable background, as you, Molly Hartenstein, and so many of the wonderful people I've met who work with you are fighting for a more just society and a peaceful world. And of course, Bryce Green, PhD candidate from Indiana University, banned from his campus for 5 years for being part of the encampments, for organizing politically. And there you have it. And of course, I met him through Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. He's a brilliant writer, brilliant thinker. But let's start with you, Mike Leon. And everyone, I encourage you to go subscribe to his podcast. Can we please talk? It's a now that I know that you exist. I've known that you exist, but now that I know about your podcast, I now have another source for news. And I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Talk to me. What about this? What do you make of this CNN debate? I mean, it seems that CNN is having the debate, but another group used to have the debates. It seems like it's very early.
Yeah. So first off, Santita, thank you so much for the kind words, and you can listen to new episodes each week. And in interest of full disclosure, I have been on CNN. CNN has
Mhm.
invited me on to help out with the conventions. I don't know if I'm going to be a part of the debate in terms of like a political analyst.
Mhm.
So that's most of the work I've done for them in the primary and caucus season across Iowa, New Hampshire, et cetera. So I want people, I think that's the biggest thing, my complaint on television is sometimes you try to glean where people lean politically or you don't really know upfront about them. And I try to be as transparent as possible. So for transparency's sake, and the inner workings of how CNN got this is something that I'm kind of a subject matter expert in because I work a lot with the network. And you're right, it is early. They're circumventing the typical schedule of, having this after the conventions. They're circumventing the typical schedule of working with the commission on presidential debates. This is not in conjunction with those folks. Planning a debate like you just mentioned, we're going to have July 11th at Freedom Fest with the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. It takes weeks of planning because you have to choose a moderator, you have to get the candidates invited, you have to pick a venue, you have to pick a television crew. Like ours will be airing on Scripps News and rebroadcast, excuse me, on C-SPAN. So CNN and ABC News were able to prop this up, within a few hours, is my understanding of all of this. And so it shows, one, that we're kind of cutting the line a little bit here. You just gave the stats before about the decrease in people joining the Republican and Democratic Party. I've heard the slogan a lot of, I feel politically homeless right now, right? A lot of people are kind of making that waves, and the data is supporting that. And I think on a high level, this debate, while it's going to be interesting to finally see the former president against the current president, no crowd noise, two guys answering questions about their policies, their agendas, one about the trials that he's facing, the other one about what is happening right now with Israel and Gaza, what's happening with Russia, Ukraine, the Afghanistan withdrawal, his foreign policy. That's great. The problem is 60% of Americans don't want either of these guys, according to national polling. And so, okay, just like America, right? We've got buffets, we've got diners with tons of menu options. But for some reason in America, our political party structure is only two candidates that we force feed people. Why don't we have more choices and more voices? That's what we do at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. That's why we're putting on this series of debates that we've invited RFK, Jill Stein, Cornel West, the Libertarian candidate, the Socialist Party candidate, so people can actually see who their options are. And listen, I used to be a prisoner of this. If you vote for a third party candidate, you're wasting your vote. I don't feel like that anymore after having, talked to people and working in this ecosystem, because you tend to see the structure funnel the conversation one way or the other. And this is a prime example of that, because you're seeing this now where it's, hey, this is happening in June. It's only two people. We're not letting anybody else on the stage, no matter if they're at the 15% threshold to qualify or not. And to me, that's wrong, because again, what you said before, Santita, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And the math is saying right now that people are truly feeling like they're politically homeless, that they're independent, and that neither party is for them. Well, who else is out there besides one guy that's 81 and the other one that's approaching 80? So we need to know more about that. That's what we're trying to do at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation.
Well, I will watch C-SPAN, Washington Journal, first thing in the morning. And what I enjoy about it is that you have a moderator who moderates, truly. You don't know where they are politically, and I like that a whole lot in that particular context. And they open up the phone lines, Sheila and Molly and Bryce, to Democrats, Republicans, independents. And they have a topic of the day. Sometimes they just open up the phone lines and you can hear from people. And you do hear that people are not, some are Republican, some are Democrat. Many, many, many are independent. And many Democrats and Republicans want more options. And they want to hear from everybody. Of course, you have some people whose minds are closed, they're made up, and I respect that. But more and more Americans want to hear from other people. I could see the looks on people's faces the first time they heard Bernie Sanders talk, the first time they would hear a Dennis Kucinich talk, and on and on and on. But honestly, I know some people who have a lot of admiration for Donald Trump, who heard him speak in 2015, before he started his campaign. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just I think that everybody ought to be allowed to speak. But that's not what's happening, Mike. The system is so closed. And now tell me more about the format, because it seems like it's going to be in just in a little holding room.
Yeah.
No back and forth with the audience, none of that. I mean, what's happening?
Yeah. So, well, first off, my wife has a great saying that's you always don't buy the first thing, right? Because she knows I'm a prisoner of, like, I go to the car lot and I'm like, nah, this is it. We're getting this one. And then it's like, this is the first dealership. It's a whole row of dealerships. So in keeping with that vein, we should be allowing people to kind of hear what other candidates are out there from a platform perspective. What do they offer? Like, what is it about them that's making them, leave the private sector and run for public office, because that's a sacrifice, because you're sacrificing your time away from your family. You're putting yourself out there, whether it be for the good of the country or whatever it is, but we should learn more about you. So back to the debates for a second. The debates are going to happen in at least the one on June 27th down in Atlanta for CNN. It's going to be at their Atlanta studios. So the Biden campaign came up with this format that the Trump campaign agreed to. Nobody's putting a gun to Donald Trump's head. Like they came up, they said, okay, let's do this. And it's going to be a closed studio, no studio audience. Jake Tapper, Dana Bash are going to be the two moderators. Again, two people who I happen to know and have done political panels with. And I think the world of one of them, not the other. I'm not going to tell you which one. But I also think that this makes for a better format, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. It could be subject to interpretation. And I give the example of, if you followed closely during September, October, November, when the GOP primary debates were happening, there was a debate that happened at the Reagan Library in September. You couldn't hear a word edgewise because Vivek was yelling, and then the crowd was cheering at Nikki Haley, and then DeSantis was yelling. Tim Scott didn't say one word. Like, when you get the crowd into that format, it makes for shorter answers. And, there's too many people on the stage going back and forth, and it appeals to the crowd in some regards. Some were booing Vivek's answers in the first debate, if you remember, when Chris Christie was going back and forth with him. So I think right now we got to start treating the office of the presidency serious, right? This is serious. We can agree that there should be more people on that stage. I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's what we're doing at Free and Equal Elections Foundation. But for this June 27th debate, I think it should be this format. I need to be able to hear both of these guys. I need to be able to hear each of them challenge each other. I need, 2 minutes. I need more time than that, but they don't allow more than 2 minutes for a response on what it is you're doing about the war happening in Gaza, that you're supplying the weapons to the country that's blowing them up and then throwing care packages to that same country that's being blown up. Like, I need a response to that. And at the same time, I need a response as to why former President Donald Trump decided to undermine democracy and not do the peaceful transition of power that every other president has followed since this republic has been, started. So that, I don't need that in a setting of 1,000, 2,000 people that are cheering and jeering and stuff like that. So the format is going to be very controlled by the networks. And we can get into, should the networks have this much influence? I don't think they should. And I think we're all kind of in agreement on that. But
no. I need you to stick to that point.
Yes.
Because now it has been removed from this organization that their job was to do debates.
Right.
CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and I've been a political commentator on Fox for years.
I know.
Their job is to do something else. They what did you say? It's the funnel. They shape the news. They're the ones who please. They make you decide. They make you like someone, they make you not like someone.
I don't disagree with you as a former Fox News producer. I don't disagree with you. Like that's the problem. And again, and by the way, you mentioned this at the beginning that you go to me for news. Listen, like I tell everybody, I should be your only stop on the information. I shouldn't be your only stop, on the information train. It should be a diversity of sources, and you're taking the same set of facts and commonalities that you found on Reuters, on AP, on Yahoo, on MSNBC, on Fox, on CNN, and that's how you're able to interpret the story, the accumulation of those facts. But I agree with you about this because, the Commission on Presidential Debates is not involved in this. They're a nonpartisan organization. They've been around since, 1987. And they're not going to be a part of this. They're the ones that are helpful in choosing the moderator, making sure the questions are not known to the candidates prior to. When you give it to a network and control it, for people that watch sports, it's a sports analogy. Well, now the network can say what time it's on, who's calling the game, who's doing this, who's doing that, and then sports fans complain. And sports and politics have a lot of similarities, if you notice, for people that watch both of them. And so I'm in agreement with you. I don't think the news networks, and my co-host has been vocal about this on our show, the news networks should not be controlling this. We should have a normal process. Neither guy has formally accepted the nomination from their parties at the conventions, like is part of American history.
Presumptive nominee.
Right. Correct.
They're not the nominees yet.
Correct. And we know it's a formality, but whatever, go through the formality.
We don't know. Remember, right. We don't remember, but Lyndon Johnson It said in what, March 31st, 1968, I won't look, don't even look my way. I'm out of here.
Right.
He said, I'm done. And people were like, wait, this is yours for he said, I don't want it. We don't know. I mean, so much is happening, Mike. We don't, I mean, and I'm uncomfortable. And hey, to fully disclose, my father worked with CNN for years and years, so we've had a relationship with him. I get it. What what is uh, what is disconcerting to me is that, I mean, look at how they've handled Gaza. You can't get news out of West Bank, Gaza, Jerusalem, I mean Israel, unless they go through the IDF, unless they go through the government. Now, mind you, there's a lot of censoring that we do. Everybody does it. Okay, let's keep it 100. Okay, that we do not have a free and open press in the United States, and that's a fact. But that makes me uncomfortable.
Look, I mean, the one thing I will say is you and I would not be talking if you didn't hear of my show, because I was able to start on my own, structure it like the ways I learned at a news network,
Mhm.
and obviously bring on subject matter experts when the war starts up. You know, I have a professor of Israel studies that comes on, a Palestinian historian. I had a reporter that was reporting for PBS stationed out there that recently won a Peabody for her coverage on it. Former military analysts. I've had members of Congress on who served in the Iraq War, asking these type of questions of this, you know, duality that the U.S. has with both hats of like, here's the money, and by the way, here's a care package for you because they're going to blow you up. Like asking that question 10, 20 years ago, Mike Leon wouldn't have been able to do that unless he goes through the normal chains of working at a local market, you know, in Birmingham and being, you know, the journalist there and then working my way up and sending my tapes. The process is all subjective. And I agree with you back to the overarching point about the election process. And now that the news medias are controlling it, at least it appears with these presidential debates, it reeks of impropriety, right? Like that's the core of this is like, they always get labeled with whatever political direction they're leaning in by the audience, right? Fox News is on the right, MSNBC is on the left, CNN tries to be in the middle, but they're probably more in the left, just given the coverage of their news. And it's because, let's be honest, and people don't know how hard this is, and I say this as a former producer at a few networks, like it's incredibly hard to shape a rundown for an hour block and
Absolutely.
bring on people. You can't control what somebody says on live television. All you can do, like you did with me today, Santita, is vet what I've done, hope I come on and provide insight and commentary about the topic that you hit me up about. And it's incredibly hard. Now try doing that over 24 hours.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's very hard to shape and you're never going to get it right. And so for the people that do work there that are doing it the right way, like for example, Clarissa Ward, who's an international correspondent with CNN that, you know, has traveled to the region and has been, you know, with the IDF, but also has done stories in Gaza and has colleagues that have been in Gaza. Like it's hard for somebody like that to get the shine at that network because there's somebody above them approving whether or not that makes it to air, you know. And I just say this as somebody who has done this
Oh,
before.
absolutely.
It's not an easy thing. And that's why, back to the overall point about, you know, me, um, diversify your sources. Go find other shows, other podcasts. It's not just me that's doing it out there. There are other people that are interviewing subject matter experts about different topics and learn more. Read. Let's get back to the books. Let's read some books. There's no reason why we shouldn't be reading books on topics. If you want to dive into the fray and learn more about a subject, read up about it. I'm not a Palestinian historian. I'm not you're not an Israeli, not with this Puerto Rican face. And so I had to learn more about this stuff. And that's what it requires, right? That's why I think podcasts are great because, and shows like yours, Santita, because, you know, an hour, 2 hours listening to people discuss the topics, it gives people the appetite to go learn more about it. And that's what we're supposed to do. Corporate media sometimes, specifically these news networks, they don't do that because it's morsels. It's 3-4 minutes. And sometimes the lower third graphics are on mute. So you're reading it and you're like, did CNN really say that without you listening to the piece? So now you think that that's coming from CNN, or you see me on their network and I say something that you disagree with. Oh, I heard it on CNN. I'm not a paid contributor on CNN. No, I happen to be on CNN. That distinction you don't understand, but I understand it because I work in television, which is why I started the show. So I say all that to say, people continue to learn more about the information and the sources where you're getting it from. Truly vet those sources as you continue on this process.
And be agnostic about whether they come from the right or the left. Get that kernel, get the information, then do your own research. You can't be that busy. But I think that's why what you're doing with these debates, I mean, really challenging the system
Yep.
to be inclusive, to be fair. I mean, what is the philosophy that drives free and equal elections?
Well, I mean, we're striving to be, an open electoral system, one that's fair, transparent, and like I said, inclusive of all candidates. So let me give you an example of this, Santita, because as we've been talking to other networks, and obviously, I'm front facing on the television for these networks, so I have the connections with executives. The big pitch to them is this is who we're going to have. You have to lead with, obviously, do you have steak and potatoes on this menu? And the steak and potatoes for people that are looking for this type of content is Trump or Biden going to be there? And then if not, is RFK, is Cornel West, is Joe Stein? But there's other candidates that are running for president from the Libertarian Party, from the Socialist Party. And I've mentioned some of these folks, Lars Mapstead, if not Chase Oliver, who ran in the Georgia Senate. He was, I believe, in Raphael Warnock's or John Ossoff. I forget which one he was a part of. And so he ran for Senate in Georgia. He's running for president now. Do you even know who he is if I didn't mention him right here? No, of course not. And that's what we're trying to do, trying to make it a more inclusive process and get these folks on stage debating the issues. So yeah, it looks and sounds like the other things. It's 2 hours, it's a moderator, it's on networks. But when you're pitching for these folks that we want to host this debate, this is what we're about. It's a blockchain voting app so people can look in real time to see who is winning this election. They can engage in some of the questions as well. Do you think this person answered it properly? Like, what do you think of this person's platform and policies? We're trying to do that so that way, hopefully, this is the model that's used going forward in terms of, again, it's pie in the sky, but we're hopeful that it's inclusive of getting the Republican and Democratic parties to say, you know what, we should include them. We should have a true system now in terms of debating where we see all of the candidates that are available. That's been the biggest thing that's been concerning to me, too, as I've been doing this, Santita, is, you saw the Biden campaign was adamant. No third party candidates on this debate. Why not? There should, if someone is polling at 10, 11%, that's America talking to you saying that they support somebody, that they're not going to vote for either of you. That person should be on the stage and should be heard. And so that's what we're trying to do at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation.
Well, I have seen Molly nodding her head vigorously in assent, and she's part of this younger demographic. Well, not younger. I mean, she and Bryce, they're very young, born in the 90s. Oh my. I was born in the last century. Deep in. And, and so what was it that Mike Leon and the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, what is it that's resonating with you, Molly?
I was actually born in 2001 also, so I was born in this century. But no, I think I really appreciate what you're saying, and both of you are saying about being open to new perspectives and being willing to understand and engage, not with what people say they are, but what they're actually saying. What you just said, Mike, about having third-party candidates on stage, right, and being able to actually have a diversity of opinion and thought in one space is the purpose of a debate, right? Like that is the whole point of hearing all these of watching this and engaging with it. I think my insistence on this also comes from the perspective of an anti-Zionist Jewish person who is often excluded from the mainstream media, right? Like when we hear about what Jewish America is or what Jewish institutions are, those rarely include groups like Jewish Voice for Peace, or If Not Now, or perspectives like my own that are fundamentally different from what the ADL or the JUF is saying, which is hateful propaganda, in my opinion. And so I think it is really, it's not just being agnostic about if things are on the right or the left, but being willing to engage with whatever is out there and take the truth from whatever it is. So not excluding people because they say they're anti-Zionist or because they say they are Zionist, but really getting down to the nitty-gritty of what do you advocate for and why? And how can we engage on these issues and end up with a more peaceful and just, media sphere, but also like world and political sphere. And so I think that's where my heart lies. Like I I did competitive debate for 10 years in school and really learned the value of listening and debating and critical thinking. And you can't have critical thinking if you live in an echo chamber or if you only have conversations on your own terms. Um, and, I think some people will be like, well, why would you ever want to engage with Zionists or with pro-Israel people? Coming from the perspective of someone like me who sees what the Israeli government is doing for what it is as apartheid and as vicious warmongering. And it's not that I want to engage with them, but I know that I will get nowhere without engaging with people who think differently from me, and that the same arguments are used to exclude me from the sphere, from conversations. And so, yeah, I think that's what I resonate the most with that you guys are discussing, and I'm very honored to be on a show like this that allows for diversity of thought and opinion and allows us to really get into the nitty gritty of not just what different thoughts and opinions are, but the meta thinking of why those things are necessary in the media and political environment that we live in right now.
Well, let us be clear. This is our discussion. This is our discussion. That's why you're here, because, I want you to hear what they're doing, how they are conducting the debate. And mind you, I know, look, we both have friends at Fox, at CNN, at MSNBC, BBC, Al Jazeera, all over the place, all over the world. And people don't go into the system, Mike, wanting to be unfair and unjust. I mean, they just don't. I mean, that's one of the things when I went to Fox, boy, I've read some horrible things about me, but whatever. I said, I actually met some of the nicest, most supportive people in my life. I met there. But the system is what it is. But I think Americans are calling for, before I pivot to you, Bryce, I've got to pivot back to you, Mike. People want something different. When you've got this growing body of independence in the United States and this shrinking debate system, that's not working. The incongruity, it really is, it's harmful to the democracy, well, to the republic, because we have elements of democracy. We're trying to get there. Some of us are trying to get there. And I wonder, just given how electric the body politic is, will this work?
I mean, if I had an answer for that, I mean, I will say this. Let me rewind the clock for a second here, because Molly and Bryce, I'm envious, first off, of your age. Secondly, I'm envious that, at Molly's age, what was I, junior at Rutgers University? I'm getting ready to throw a party probably later on campus. And I don't even know what I'm going to do that weekend, what I'm going to do with my life. I knew I wanted to do television. I knew I wanted to be on TV, but I didn't have any of it figured out. And again, when I was at college, 9/11 happened, right? When I went to school. So obviously Rutgers University is in New Jersey. It's not that far from New York City. I could see the smoke from the towers. And, I ended up working for a conservative radio station, funny enough, like later that year. And I was very head down doing news, not listening to the news. And those are two different things. So I think for Molly and Bryce and for people that are younger, they're starting to show that they don't watch Santita, they don't watch the traditional big three. They don't watch the linear networks no more. They don't get it from that. They get it from either social media. They get it from podcasts. They get it from YouTubers that have thousands of followers. I'll open up Instagram one day. One person's got 1.6 million people. I'm like, I have never heard of this person in my life, because they didn't come up through the traditional linear television system. So there's two things you can take away from that. A, you can't be a get off my lawn type of guy and say, no, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. There's a reason why that audience is following that person. So maybe there's something here. But when you start to ingratiate yourself, as you have before, Santita, with these news networks, you start to learn that the power is truly at the top, and the structure is so subjective in terms of who they want voices wise. The best is, Nina Turner, you and I both happen to know, right? I mean, Nina Turner has done tons of CNN stuff. Obviously, she's a former campaign manager for Bernie Sanders. And when she's done something on the plight of Palestinians who did not vote for Hamas, they did not vote for Hamas when Hamas came into power in 2006, 2007. Okay. 50% of the country is under 18 years old, right? But she goes on there and talks about the plight of these people that are being killed now. And do you see her in the next week or 2 weeks segment wise? No, you don't see her. So to your overarching question about like, do we see a shift? Is there a change? I think so. And I hope so, because we're starting to see the numbers bear out as these networks are trying to find new voices and try to keep up. And it's because they're realizing, hey, the country really is more in the middle, and people are finding other sources and resources to scratch that itch and find out more information about what is happening. And we're not going to go to you anymore if you don't do this, which is why you're seeing the networks pulling all out and say, we're going to try to get the presidential debates and circumvent the system. That's not going to win you any people in the hearts and minds of folks to get on your side. So I think that, because of this new media and this new age, and we're seeing it now in news and sports and stuff like that, I think it's starting to make a cultural shift, and you're getting more voices and more choices, in your news and politics commentary. And that's what we're trying to do at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation.
And I think that's what we want to see, Bryce, Mike, for the presidential debates, because we need to hear much more than what we're hearing. Biden and Trump are fine. And it's going to be wonderful theater. But you guys, come on. Bryce, Mike, Molly. I want to hear from Jill Stein. I want to hear from the socialists. I want to hear from the Democratic Socialists. I want to hear what everybody has to say, because they can help to reshape the debate. They really can. But when you exclude them, Mike, Bryce, Molly, and first you, Bryce, you're missing a whole lot.
Yeah, one of the things that helped me understand the world in a more clear-eyed and in a robust way was hearing the different sides and different interpretations about what is correct, about what the history is, and about how to go forward, and putting them against each other and using my own God-given reasoning to figure out the truth and the actual facts for myself. Hearing someone who is an ardent defender of Israel, defend Israel is important. It's useful. You understand so much better why things are playing out the way they are if you know the way they think. If you don't, then you're running a risk of putting yourself in a silo of ignorance and closed-mindedness, in which you might not have the best and most up-to-date information about how to best achieve your goals. If you're an organizer, you have to understand what your opponent is thinking or would think, or at least there's the state of mind that animates them. You have to understand how these people view Palestinians, how these people view the American role in the world, how these people view the country of Israel, the connection that they have with it. Otherwise, you're going to misjudge their behavior. You're going to be confused and bamboozled when they say insane things that don't make any sense. When they bring up and abuse history, it's going to be confusing to you unless you actually know where they're coming from. And the same is true for any political disagreement. You want to know how ridiculous the libertarian ideology is in America? Well, you'd have to spend some time talking to libertarians and spend time talking to their critics to actually figure it out. And the way that the current debate system narrows the spectrum of what is considered acceptable to talk about is one of the reasons that America's breaking at the seams, is that the ideas that have been considered acceptable have been so detrimental to the American domestic constituency, but also the rest of the world. They've been so destructive, and the institutions are incapable of changing beyond this narrow spectrum. And so if the public is unable to see anything outside of that box, well, then they don't have any opportunities to organize around different poles that could reorient the American politics. The media plays a crucial role in defining what's acceptable, what's possible, elevating those voices that are important. You mentioned the demise of the gatekeepers, right? And how young people aren't really they're not paying attention to the New York Times or CNN or Washington Post or what have you, and that they've moved on to Instagram influencers and TikTokers and YouTubers, etc. So that's true to a degree, but power structures haven't caught up with that. And so a lot of people, even if they're young people, are completely invisible. but they get into the Post or the Times, or they get on CNN. They have more influence over how the world works. And so how these networks decide to portray the world influences an entire class of people that is the political decision makers. You can say whatever you want on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. It doesn't affect the way the political system works all that much, because the political system is made up of individuals who, they don't pay attention to that ecosystem. Their truth comes from the New York Times. Their truth comes from MSNBC, Fox, etc. And so these institutions still have a stranglehold on the political future of the country. And if they're narrowing the spectrum of debate, well, then the future that they're putting on this country is more of the same, which is, destruction.
Mike, do you want to ask these young people? And I'm not pigeonholing you. I was born in the 60s. So I'm coming from a whole different space. Well, not really. You try to keep up. You try to keep up, because I have nieces and nephews who are in college or coming out of college. I have nieces and nephews who are in grammar school and high school. So I listen to them, Mike. And my brother Jonathan is in Congress now, and we were together a few months ago. We gathered at his home. A friend of ours passed away, and several friends had come over to eat, to talk after this funeral. And my nephew had come in, his son, who's a senior. He's graduating from Northwestern in 5 minutes. And bless his heart, my brother said there is no way that I could not have been an original signer of the ceasefire bill with Cori Bush and be able to get home. And my nephew looked at him and said, "Absolutely not, Dad." Now, a lot of his friends are not speaking to him up on the Hill. My brother's basically a super freshman. But, you have to keep your ear open and your eyes open and be open to different perspectives and experiences. And so, Mike, I want you to ask them what they want, and ask them whatever it is that you want to ask them, because they're coming from what's interesting about watching these demonstrators, and those in corporate media have observed this. They don't speak to the New York Times when they come and they're queried by them.
Right.
They don't want anything to do with them. They don't want to talk to corporate media. They don't even let you know when they're going to pop up and lock down Grand Central Station, because they don't trust the corporate media. I mean, they're even organizing very differently, because they've seen the sabotage that these progressive movements have to endure, and they are over it. They're over so much, and that's why I want you to ask them, because you're about to have not just this debate, but other debates going into this election season. And hey, whatever it is that they can give you, because you are making this free and equal, go for it.
Well, listen, I mean, you gave a good segue there, because, in 2022 for our show, we did some focus groups in a couple different states, Illinois and here in Florida, college campuses, 10 or 12 students, rank your top, 7, 8 issues. And you're starting to see trends where voters are more single issue voters, right? They're focused on one singular thing, whether it's women's reproductive rights. I can't believe we even have to have a debate on that. I am not a man. Why am I telling a woman what to do with her body? This is wild to me. But you know what? Hey, so I would ask, and we can go Molly and then Bryce, what is the most important issue to you? Because both of you have mentioned about the Israel-Gaza war, and it seems like come November, if the hostages are not returned, there's no ceasefire in place, Israel's still bombing Gaza, and this is still happening. It sounds like both of you either won't participate or will vote for somebody else not named Joe Biden or Donald Trump. So let me start with Molly first. Like, tell me what is the most important issue to you right now, being a citizen of the U.S., and then B, is my sentence true about what will happen in November with your vote if the war is still happening in Gaza?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think your assumption is mostly right. I do think, I wouldn't call myself a single issue voter, but I do think that the U.S. government's ongoing military, financial, cultural support of Israel's genocidal regime in Gaza is the biggest issue to me, and will decide my ballot. I think the truth of the matter is, for many reasons, not just what's going on in Palestine, I don't want to vote for a war criminal, right? I don't know. I don't want to vote for people who are actively endorsing human rights abuses and war crimes. I don't think that's personally a particularly radical stance to take. And I think it also means more than just Palestinian liberation. I think it spills over into domestic issues. It spills over into other foreign policy issues. It spills over into anything we can think about, to me, right? If we are justice oriented, then there's a right answer to this question that might exist for me in Gaza, but might exist for other people in other places, in the political spectrum. I think, I'm here representing a 501c3. I'm not going to say, who I vote for or endorse a candidate or unendorsed candidate. What I will say is I take voting very seriously, and I take all levels of the ballot, including down ballot, very seriously. I think that the idea that our vote for presidential candidates is what determines our politics is not true. I think that we have a lot more say in local elections than we do in federal ones too, especially depending, right, because Electoral College. Illinois is going to go blue no matter if I vote or not for Biden, for Trump, etc. So I encourage people to be really specific and really intentional with where they vote and how they, not just how they vote, but where they vote, right? Where their voice will have the greatest impact anywhere on the ballot from the top to the bottom. And so, yeah, that's my answer to your question. I don't see myself single issue voter, but I do see what's happening in Israel, Palestine as the most prominent example of my politics. And I do think is a determining factor for myself and lots of other people of conscience, let alone young people, right? Like people who care about justice and peace.
Right. Bryce, what about you?
Yeah, people ask all the time, like, oh, vote for Joe Biden, lesser of two evils. Are you going to help Trump win or whatever? To that I say, I really haven't thought that far ahead. And it doesn't matter too much what I think or what we care about. The people having serious discussions about whether or not Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils, if you rounded all of them up in the country and put them in, a ballot or like had them vote or something, it wouldn't really affect the election that much. The people who have already made their decision and will never change their decision typically make that, decide who the president is. And at the end of the day, if your issue is imperialism and, declining American living standards, knowing that your children's future is going to be worse off than yours. And when it comes to that, the candidate doesn't really matter. Neither party is going to put us on the right track. And we all know that a third party candidate isn't going to win. Now, you can talk about how to be strategic and say, hey, I'm going to vote against Biden so I can punish him. He doesn't care. The Democrats don't care. They don't care whether or not they win or lose because they don't really have an ideology. They're nihilist. If they had a vision for what the country should be like instead of Republicans, to the extent that they have it, it's everything is exactly the same, but maybe people have abortion rights, and maybe there are a few better regulators on the FTC and the NLRB. If that's what you think is worth voting for, then go ahead. I'm not going to stop you, but it'd be kind of foolish to think that would seriously change the broader issues of the country. That would stop millions of people from being murdered by American bombs. That would stop people from being starved to death by American sanctions. And that would stop the American middle class to be completely destroyed and the American working class to be brutally attacked. Both parties agree with that. So I think the more important question is, how do people want to reorient politics? I've been saying this, over and over again. The only way that politics is going to change in this country is if people put the time and effort and energy into building a mass movement that could counteract and act as a counterbalance to some of the forces that control the Republicans and Democrats. The only reason that these parties are acting in the way they are is because it's the path of least resistance. If you want to get ahead and you don't really care about the country, if you don't care about people and the effects your policies will have on their lives, then yeah, it's easy to say, yeah, I'll take money from APEC, I'll take money from Halliburton, Raytheon, all those guys. I'll take money from the banks. I'll take money from the guys, the landlords who want to, destroy all your lives. I'll take that because it benefits me. Now, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. There's no mass movement that's going to sweep them out of office. There's no mass movement that's going to punish them for being, prostituting themselves to the corporate elite. There's no mass movement that can do that. So the obvious solution is to get to work building that mass movement. And the question of, who you're going to pull the lever for once every 4 years is pretty minor compared to this broader issue. And, the hearing the debates about, where the minority candidates are versus where the majority candidates are would be a very important step in getting people to understand that crucial fact that they are the reason, or they are their own salvation, that the only way that it gets better is if they get up and do something. There's no candidate that'll swoop down from the heavens and save everybody. There's no, it doesn't work like that. People need to be mobilized and up and at them. Otherwise, who you vote for in the fall isn't going to matter in 20 years when, we're sitting looking at a nuclear crater where Washington used to be.
Well, given what you've heard from Molly and Bryce, how does that, could that inform July 11th, the free and equal elections debate and debates going forward?
Well, I mean, I think for sure this is something that'll get on the candidates' ear and radar. I mean, you saw Cornel West and Joe Stein participating in some of the protest, obviously in support of Palestine. And let's make that crystal clear. It's in support of the Palestinians that are innocently being killed in all this. And, to Bryce's point, look, I mean, he's right about a lot of that, right? Like I can't refute any of that. The question is, how does a young person, how does somebody in my age demo, how does somebody in your age demo, Santita, like actually go out there and make their voice be heard, be known, informed, learning about things? It does start at the local level. All politics is local. I can tell you, I'm having the person that's running for Congress here in my district on my show coming up in the coming weeks, who's challenging somebody that's a more MAGA Republican candidate. And it's not because, I'm siding one way or the other. It's because here's a challenger and here's the incumbent. I want to hear from both of them. And I want to ask the questions that will not only affect me and the other constituents that this person's supposed to serve, but it's also about this person's going to be at the highest stage, right? The biggest seat at the table, 435 people in the House. So there's only, it's 331 million people that are in this country. 435 are representing the House and 100 are representing the Senate. Like, we need to understand what these folks, this small minority of folks that have so much power, are doing. And we need to ask these questions. So I think what I gathered from both of them today, Molly and Bryce, is something that I'm sure RFK, Cornell, Jill Stein, the libertarian candidates have all heard on the trail, which is, what are issues that are playing out in your community? What's number 1, 2, 3, 4 important to you? What is something that you want to see changed about DC? The problem is, to Bryce's point, a lot of it is pie in the sky because there's no incentive to change the structure. There's more money in talking about the problem than solving the problem. And that's always been the biggest issue. And so I say this as somebody who talks about the problem, but I'm trying to give call to actions. I'm trying to hold feet to fire. I'm trying to have members of Congress on that. It doesn't matter whether or not I agree or disagree with them. It's about what the general public wants to know about what they're doing. And that's the whole point of holding people accountable to what it is they're trying to do. So I say all that to say that I think from Bryce, from Molly, and from Bryce's and Molly's of the world that are out there right now, that are going to these campaign events. If you haven't been to one, go to one, because they're very interactive and the candidates will listen to you and they will take that to the debate stage with them to talk about those issues. You always see these these parallels that they draw of, yeah, I met with this person that was in this coffee shop in this Iowa, right? And sometimes is that story made up? Is it fictional? Stuff like that? No, sometimes these are real stories of people that they meet on the campaign trail that are going through things that help shape the narrative of what their platform is and what they're running on. So continue to do that. Continue to get your voice be heard, but don't be so, naive about your vote doesn't count. Sure, mathematically with the electoral college, your vote doesn't matter in certain states if you're of one party and not of the other. I agree with you on that. But that doesn't mean that you don't go out there and try and voice your opinion and make sure that you're being heard and make sure that you're informed about the situation and make sure that when you get opportunities to talk to people that are running for office, you don't put the headphones on and walk past them when they're at the supermarket campaigning. No, you stay there and you ask them for 5 to 10 minutes. It's only 5 to 10 minutes. Ask them questions about their platform and why they should garner your vote. Do that, and you will be a better citizen. We'll all be better for it if we all follow that.
July 11th, the Free and Equal Elections Foundation will be having a debate in Las Vegas. Just in these closing couple of minutes, who will be there, and how can we get involved with you? Because you're going to be having more debates, and I know more candidates who will be there.
Yeah, so go to freeandequal.org first and foremost. You can see the previous debates that we've had. Funny enough, one of the debates that we had featured Jason Palmer, who was running for president on the Democratic side. If you know that name, it's because he beat President Biden in American Samoa earlier this year.
Right.
And people were like, who is Jason Palmer? This is part of the problem, folks. When you find out who somebody is, there are other people that are on the ground that already know who this person is, or at least have had him on a debate stage. So first and foremost, go to freeandequal.org and find out more about the foundation, how you can get involved with that. You can go to freedomfest.com. That's where the event will be happening, like you mentioned, July 11th at the Caesars Forum. Huge thing happening there. I mean, the president of Argentina will be there. There'll be folks from Fox News, from CNN, former Democratic candidates for Congress like Justin Amash out of Michigan. So you're going to recognize a lot of the people that are there that are having dialogue, right? It starts there. Can we please talk? Right, Santita? That's where it starts first and foremost. You can obviously check out episodes of Can We Please Talk wherever you get your pods. But July 11th, go check out what we're doing. And like I said, it'll be streaming live on YouTube, on some other social media platforms. And obviously, it'll be available for rebroadcast on C-SPAN. And you can watch it on Scripps News and download the Scripps News app wherever apps are available, App Store, Google Play. So find out more about us. But beyond us, get more involved in politics. Now's not the time to sit out. If you want to complain about the problem, you got to be involved in helping to solve the problem. So don't complain about it, do something about it. And so go to freeandequal.org.
Hey, you're the solution. You are somebody, believe it or not. You really are the solution. And got to get you out there, Bryce, because he's brilliant, and we're going to get you back on the campus. But as you can hear, he is a brilliant guy, and maybe there's a lot for you to do. And Mike Leon, I want to thank you for all of the work that you have done, all the work that you do. Can We Please Talk is the podcast that you need to go to. I think you're going to really, really enjoy it. You will hear all sides. And I think that's important. And then you go away and you make your decision. You go away and look, we all have our opinions. But what I seek to do on this show, Mike, I just want to be fair. Really. You can think what you want to think, believe what you want to believe. I'm not going to knock you. I'm not. I want you to be heard. And that's what you're going to hear July 11th at this debate. More voices will be heard at this debate than will be heard at the CNN debate. You should watch that too. But you must press these networks. You must press all entities to include everybody, because it is our country, the operative word being our country. Word, shall I say. Mike Leon, Can We Please Talk? That's the podcast. The Free and Equal Elections Foundation. I want to thank you. Give Christina and Zach and everybody on your team my love. And Bryce Green, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and Indiana University. I am so proud of you and excited for you. And God bless you, everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy and an honor being with you. See you on Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson on Sunday on the iHeart Media Network. God bless you, everybody.